Suhail, Steve, Rudy, thanks for your time this morning. If we could just kick off with, obviously, the general feeling around the football club. There was a few supporters groups came together last week, put a video together, released a statement. Can I just get your reaction first and foremost to that?
Yeah, personally, I was pretty disappointed, and not with the video and not with the actual letter and release, but more with the following sort of attacks, personal attacks and threats, etc. afterwards. Disappointed because, been in the game a long time, I understand that frustration can come in because of lack of on-pitch performance, because of other things the supporters may not like. But I've had an open door sort of policy with all the fans over the 7.5 years I've been chief executive of the club. I attend all fans forums. I met the Supporters Trust before they became We Are the Rovers Trust. I have an open door surgery on before a game where I meet groups of fans, constructive emails, I meet individuals, etc. So I've been very open in dialogue with fans. So I would have thought that a more diplomacy type of angle would have been better initially with the club, and alertness to the fact of, we're aware of some of the issues, but not all of them. And then have a dialogue with them, keep the dialogue going, and see if we can get to a midpoint. But yeah, so personally disappointed, to be quite honest.
How does it impact the rest of this season, and what will your message be collectively to the supporters on the back of that statement?
Well, we're on the cusp of an interesting time in football, and I know some Rovers fans have been involved with the Football Supporters Association. I've been very much behind the fan-led review that's moved into football governance bill, which is getting a second reading. We've obviously got an independent football regulator coming in. One of the cornerstones is fan engagement, which I'm supportive of, a fan engagement board. So my message and my plea would be that on the pitch, we've got 7 remaining games, 4 at home. Incredibly, we're still only 5 points off the playoffs and still in with a shout. So my view is that support the players, the team that are real honest, hard-working group of players. Go right the way through to the end of the season. Give them the full support like you have done during the season. And then off the pitch, I'm open for dialogue, for meetings, for discussions with groups to see if we, as I say, if we can iron out these different issues that have come up and manifested itself into the release of the video, naming the 3 of us, telling us not to attend a game, which is not possible because we've all got different match day duties.
Responsibilities.
And therefore we have to be there, otherwise we're in breach of our contracts with the ownership.
It has been fuelled, I think, the general feeling by sort of the current form, being in such a strong position at the turn of the year and then now being outside the playoffs, but there's also underlying concern over the court case in India. Can you just bring us up to speed with the latest developments on that?
I think I could fill on that, Neil, and like we always said, that the court case has put a lot of pressure on the club, but the owners have continued to back us. Last 3 seasons have been difficult, but I could say that come what may, the owners are going to support us. Funding-wise, we've always had funding available. There's no restrictions on the funding coming into the club anymore. The court has given us an interim relief. And on the basis of the relief, the owners are happy to fund us. So we don't see any problem with the funding as such.
When you say interim relief, could you just explain that to supporters?
Interim relief is that we've applied to the High Court to say that please allow us to remit funds to the club, because obviously we are on a benefactor model. It's been a benefactor model for the last 15 years, and even before that, the owners keep funding the shortfall. We run a very tight operations, but we still require about 22 million from the owners every year as funding. The owners have put in about 300 million in terms of loans at the club over the last 15 years. So they'll continue to do that, but obviously the court case is not against Blackburn Rovers, to be clear. The court case is against a holding company which was floated in the UK, but overall impact was on the group, where it was not allowed to remit money overseas. But now that relief has allowed us to start sending the funds, and they've sent us over the last 3 years.
Are the owners aware of the current feeling around the football club, and what is their reaction to this?
I'm sure, like Steve said, they must be definitely disappointed with the whole situation. That's it, because we can't deny the fact that without their funding, our day-to-day operations is quite restrictive. It was a big challenge for us when we first heard of the restrictions. There was a surprise for us that how do we manage the day-to-day workings. But then the owners asked us, can we be creative? At one point they asked us if we've got any assets that we could use to in terms of sponsorship, and they became sponsors for them. They funded us 4 million in terms of sponsorship deal for the next 5 years. Now they are trying to find all ways to support us. So in the same way, I would say, yeah.
Has someone spoken to them directly then about the current issues?
Yeah. They get updated every day, obviously.
I think it's important as well to say that there's a number of owners who own football clubs who support the club through various other business activities. So when their other business activities are impacted by COVID, by a utility crisis, an oil crisis or whatever, then that means that we still have to operate the club. And I know that there's been a lot of questions and noise about, where's all the transfer fees going? Because we've sold a lot of players over the last few years. Good player trading, as we call it. Now, some of that, obviously, we want to reinvest into certain parts of the business and the squad. But other parts have to be, and it's other clubs, every club does it, has to be used for operational costs to keep the club running. So, yeah, the simplistic numbers are that the club operates between 40 to 43 million in terms of cost base. There's been an uplift. Suhail's been driving the commercial side for the last year, an uplift to about 21 million. So nearly half comes in through broadcasting deals, retail, etc. And then the other has to be backfilled by the owners in some form or other, either by direct funding if there's no player trading, or if there is some player trading, how we divide that income across the operational aspect as well as supporting the squad.
So just to be clear, there is no impediment for the owners funding the football club, is that right?
Yeah,
yep.
Not at all.
Okay.
And obviously, just to be even more clear, we won't say that it's been easy. Last year has been really difficult. We had to manage by player trading. Obviously, as Steve said, we had to be away from the benefactor model temporary till the court here. There was a hard sanction against sending money overseas, which is no longer there. But at that point of time, we needed funds, and we've used those funds by sale of players. But over and above, over the last 2 years, I think even this year, we spent on transfer fees. We had a budget of about 4.5 million. At the start of the season, we spent about 3 million. We spent again in the January window. So we've got the backing. We're trying to be creative as much as possible. But at the same time, we have to be mindful that we have to have the shortfalls reduced because we can't be only on a benefactor model.
One of the things that came up in the videos was whether the owners would be interested in selling the football club, whether they have any desire to do so. What's their response been?
Well, there hasn't been any. The current position is that the club is not for sale. They haven't asked us to go and seek any outside investment for the club at the moment. So as it currently stands, the club is with the owners and we have no other direction from them to say that it's going to change in the immediate future.
And also coming on Steve's point of outside investment, coming back last year again, we were in a very difficult time. We were able to raise funds in the UK. We arranged the 8 million bridging loan, which has now 100% been paid back, again backed by the owners, where we got the 8 million last year as a financing mode. And then this year we paid it back. They've paid it back.
Just moving on to January, the window and the departure of John Eustace as well, which I think has played a part in getting to the situation where we are now. Reflections on the window itself in terms of the business that was done. Looking back on it now, how do you reflect on it?
I think we tried to support John Eustace as much as we could by bringing players to add some depth to the squad. Obviously, we had the injury crisis over the period of the winter time, and we had to be creative on the players that we're going to bring at the club to make sure they've got an instant impact, but also they're going to the character of the player is going to fit what we want to achieve as a club and keep this togetherness. So we did our best to support John Eustace for this. We think we brought players who added value to the squad. So we brought 6 players. The owners, speaking about the owners, allowed us to uplift the wage bill, and we are quite happy with the business that we did.
The phrase substantial investment was used. Supporters might question that. I think you touched on it before, Suhail, about the money that has been brought in over the last 18 months or so. I think supporters see very much we've sold players, haven't invested the same levels in terms of bringing people in. Can you understand that point of view?
Yes, we understand. We spend a bit of money on transfer fee this summer and in this January. We've got an exciting time coming up next summer that we're probably going to use a bit of this money too. So, but we have to be sensible. We have to stick with our philosophy as a club, which is player development. So it's part of the long process for the next few years at the club. So we will not go in the market and spending 10, 15 million on one player. That's not how we operate as a club. So we stick to our philosophy, our way of operating, and that's why we've been creative, bringing the right players at the club.
Why were the deals done so late in the window?
January windows is the same for everyone. There is injury problem. Nobody knows exactly what's going to be the squad by the end of the January. So everybody's taking time. We've been proactive, getting in touch with a few of our targets very early in January, even we start in December, but we are just waiting on clubs to make decisions at times. And when those clubs were willing to trade, that's why we've been able to make some players to come and also try to move forward our decision.
Did the window have anything to do with the departure of John Eustace? Who was choosing the players that came in January?
It's a collective decision. So when we've got for our processes in the recruitment, we identify players based on the head coach needs and the squad needs also. And then when we've got a list of players, we show the players to the head coach and the board to make a financial decision, obviously, but also a sportive decision. When we think the right players is chosen by the full collective people, by the board and the head coach, then we move on the players. So we block players that John Eustace was on board with, that players that was on our list in the summer, but we couldn't, like Augustus Carbo, but the deal couldn't happen, came back in January, and John Eustace was on board with the player. We blocked Dion Sanderson that he had at Birmingham before as a captain. We block experienced players with Adam Forshaw, so we think we had a good business, and John was on board with the players that we blocked.
Why did John leave the football club then? Did the club try to keep John here?
I think it's a good question to ask John first, but when we discussed with John, he was willing to discuss with Derby for personal reasons, closer to his house. So when the head coach came to us and said, I want to discuss with the club, and obviously it's been well documented that he had a clause on his contract, as a club we just go with the head coach decision. So that's what's happened. We had to accept it. Obviously, as a club, you don't want to change your head coach at the middle of the season, especially in the position we were in. But that's his decision, so there's nothing we can do about it.
I think the other point, just touching on that, Rudy, is that mid-season now changing managers is becoming more prevalent. The tenure of a manager is about 18 months in the Championship. It's getting less by the year. Yeah. So the interchanges between managers now and head coaches are much more prevalent right across the calendar year. It used to be at the beginning of the season or maybe just before a window. Now it's any time of the year. And if anyone does reasonably well, they go straight on the radar of other clubs. And there's some clubs who've had probably 7 managers in the last 2 years. Some, so their tenure is about 3-4 months maximum, and that's getting more prevalent. So, and hence why release clauses are coming into contracts of head coaches, where the agents and the head coach insist on having a release clause, because they know that the market's so transient now and so volatile that they can be jumping into clubs and out of clubs every few months. And when John was on the way out to Derby, because I brought John in, because I thought he was absolutely ideal for the situation we're in 12 months ago, where we weren't looking at 5 points off the playoffs, we were looking at a couple of points off relegation, and he had done it at Birmingham. And so, the process was pretty quick. We looked at the market who was available then John was out of work, was available, met him. Yes, I'd love to come, and then we move forward from there. But there's more and more of these changes between managers and head coaches coming, and they're very difficult to hold on to anyone when they come to us and say, there's been a lot of clubs in just over the previous months to John going to wanting to come in and saying, I want to go and talk to Derby. You know, there was Stoke available, there was Coventry available, there was other clubs available, Luton available, you name it. They were all coming up, and John was doing particularly well with us, very well with us, and therefore he was on the radar with others. So we knew somewhere along the line something was going to come in that would be attractive to him in Derby County, as Rudy's just said. Previous club, closer to his home, you know, and therefore he wanted to go and talk to him. So to me, I call it going into the departure lounge. It's very difficult for them to probably come back and say, oh, I don't want to go anymore. So, and that's football, I'm afraid. I've been in the game a long time, and it's happened before, and it'll happen a lot more in the future as well.
Talk us through the process then of looking for a new head coach. How did that work?
Similar process to always. As soon as agents, media, it's out there that John Eustace is going to talk to Derby, we get a whole plethora of people coming in, usual suspects on the circuit, along with emerging head coaches from all over the planet, along with other possible number twos who want to step up and notch. So we get a whole range of that, and those who are out of contract as well at the current time. We go through them all. There's the three of us, plus Adam Owen, head of technical development, because he would got to work very closely with the head coach in terms of the whole methodology and principles to play, etc. We go through it all. We go to a long list. We make a lot of calls, do due diligence, do a long list, have phone calls, and then we eventually end up on a bit of a shorter list, but still quite a few where we had video calls, Teams meetings, just to ascertain, get a feel for the criteria we were looking for in terms of championship experience, youth development, etc., etc. And then from there, we'll hone in and look at 3 or 4, which we've always done. We've done it with a process with Jon Dahl. I haven't done it that many times at this club because the club isn't a sacking club. Far from it. 5 years of stability with Tony Mowbray in my time, who I'd worked with before at Coventry. Then Jon Dahl comes. Thought it would be longer, but it lasted 20 months. Up until the February, and there was a change there. And then obviously John Eustace the same, but the process was, you know, we eventually have to then meet more than one time face to face to get the feel for, is the person a good fit for the club? Is the club a good fit for them at that juncture of their career? And then we appoint from there.
Why Valerian and why a 3.5-year deal?
Very, very impressive throughout, from my opinion. Suhail and Rudy, along with Adam, who's not in the room, were on it and through all the different criteria that we were looking for. He was virtually top on every different score point. His CV was very impressive, and as an individual, he's very impressive as well.
And when you go a bit more in the details, the way he's playing football with a front foot, exciting team, pressing, high press, that's exactly what we want to do as a club. But also he's got youth development records on the team that he played with. So for us, it was the perfect fit. If you check our previous record at the academy, over 2,000 minutes were played by the young players from the academy. We've seen that the numbers went down through John Eustace's period. So it was important as a club to make sure we go back to those numbers, and we want to keep developing our young players from the academy and go back to the over 2,000, 3,000 minutes per season. So it was also an important decision for the next head coach, that to make sure he's buying into the philosophy of the club.
There was a short-term goal this season, but with the 3.5-year deal, was there also a more long-term plan with Val then?
Yes, as we said, you know, you don't build a project in one season. You need a 3, 4, 5 transfer window to make sure you get to the squad that you want. We've got strong foundation at the club through our academy, but also the people has been at the club for a while. So we just need to build from this. It's an exciting times coming up in the summer because we've got over 10 players out of contract or end of loan. So it's a good time for us to make sure we can now build with the right people, build with the right players, and build the squad that we want going forward. So if you sign a short-term contract with a head coach, you don't send the right message to the coach to make sure like he's got patience and he can start to implement his own ideas, but also to the fans, we want to show stability as a club. I think the history of the club show that, as Steve mentioned, we're very stable for the head coach, for the people working at the club. We've got, I would say, over 15 people who's been at the club for over 25 years, which is amazing. So we want to build from this, and having this head coach, when we give him time to build and time to implement his own ideas, it just shows the stability of the club.
How difficult a start has it been for Val?
I think it was a challenge because obviously it was an unusual situation where you're changing managers, where you're in and around the playoffs, and then you're saying to the head coach who's asking you, what's the remit? How many? Yeah, and the remit was, well, you don't have to change too much because the team's doing pretty well at the moment. So you come in and have to implement your sort of culture and your ideas and other things, but without touching too many dials in the cockpit. But obviously, as things progress and time progresses, and he gets more time on the training pitch with the players, then he can implement some of his ideas, as Rudy said, high pressing, front foot, etc., etc. So that'll come over time.
Obviously, if you check the result of the squad, it's been a disappointment because we played lower team in the table that we thought to try to achieve playoff this season. We should have get some points, but we knew in terms of performance that the team were not doing very well the last, I would say, 15 to 20 games. We won only 4 games, 2 were on the David Lowe, the caretaker. So obviously we knew that something has to change. And when it's changing now, it takes a bit of time, as mentioned before. So the results are not great, but the performance are getting better. The players are start to understand the way we want to go forward. They start to understand how to defend as a team, pressing high as a team. So it's a shift between the way John Eustace was playing to Valio and Ismael is playing. But he tried also not to change everything in the same time. When he first arrived, he had like 3 games in 10 days. So he didn't have time on the pitch with the players. Now with the international break and everything behind now, that's where we're going to see the result of his training methodology and the mentality that he has for his squad.
Just looking ahead to the future and next season, if we could start, Suhail, with season tickets. Talk us through the process of the pricing for the season tickets, because I think that is probably the one thing that the supporters look to.
Firstly, obviously, I would like to, as a club, thank the fans for their support over the last couple of seasons. I've been here at the club 10 years now, and I can say we've been very consistent in our season ticket pricing. This year's season ticket pricing has gone up a bit, but it's still lower than our season ticket price that was launched in the 21-22 season. We've tried a lot of permutations and combinations over the last 2 years. 22-23 season, we had a price drop of about £30 averagely over season tickets in all age groups. Last year we did another drop, and despite all the price drops, which was after consultations with the fans forum which I attended, we didn't get the uplift in the numbers. So we're having the same consistent number of season tickets being sold, which is about 9,000. And last year we had a drop in revenue of about 250 to 300,000. Now, as a football club, as I said previously, we're on a benefactor model, but we also need to understand that the cost of living crisis is not affecting only individuals, it's also affecting the club. Our utility bills have gone through the roof. 2 years ago, we were paying energy at 24 pence, and now it's almost about 60 pence. And effectively, it's about 900,000 that we're paying excess in utilities. NIC has gone up last year. NIC will go up again, further up this year by about 2%. Now, people need to understand that when I say NIC going up, it doesn't only affect the staff, it's also on the player wages that we pay NIC. So if you're talking of a wage bill and staff wages about 20 million, 2% uplift is 400,000. Now, as a club, we need to find ways to try and get those revenue increases. And on that basis, we've gone on a little bit of a price increase, but our season ticket prices in certain areas of stand are still lower than what our prices were in the 21-22 seasons. On a holistic approach, yes, they have gone up a bit, but we still have cheaper season tickets. As for the latest data of all the clubs that have released their championship season tickets for next year, we're still the cheapest in terms of adult pricing. Our average is also the lowest. we have about 45% of our season ticket holders are adults, and the rest 55 is concession. And when we talk about concession, your averages keep going down. So on the holistic view, we've worked everything to try and have affordable season tickets, support the next generation by having more better pricing options for the next generation.
Do you think the pricing will attract new supporters and increase numbers, and what is the target for season ticket holders for the next season?
Like I said, when we do the benchmarking, 9,000 season ticket holders is what we've done averagely. We hope we can get those 9,000 back. And like I said, new season ticket holders, obviously, like I said, next generation prices are much cheaper than what it was, and it's very attractive for young generation. So we're hoping that we're able to get those additional inputs in terms of increase in those areas.
Phase 1 has been released, obviously. What is the plan for Phase 2?
Phase 2 pricing, obviously, it will be determined at the end of the season, depending on where we are. We'll have to look at, obviously, like any other business, it will go up, but we'll have to see it at that particular time. There's no definite pricing that has been finalized as of now.
Okay. On the pitch, looking to the future, I think you touched on it before, Rudy, about the squad, how there could be a turnover. There are a lot of players who are coming towards the end of their contracts, a lot of people who are either out of contract or have loans at the football club. Just give us an idea of the plan with the squad going forward.
As mentioned, it's an exciting time because we've got decision to make. Some discussions are ongoing with some players, and obviously we have to assess the situation with the new head coach, what he's feeling about the players, and also the situation at the end of the season. Are we in the playoff? Are we going up? Are we staying in championship? So there is some discussion ongoing, as I said, with players, but we cannot make decision now on some individuals. We have to be patient. We have to see how the season is going, and we will be proactive as soon as we know where we're going to play next season.
I think some supporters would ask whether there's been proactivity with contract renewals so far. How would you respond to them?
Same response. We have to see where we are next season. As I said, there is ongoing discussion with some players. Probably some decisions going to be released within the next few weeks. But for the rest, we will have a discussion at the end of the season with the head coach and see where we are in the board and see which decision can be made.
If players leave, then obviously we'll need to bring players in. Where are we at with the process of shaping the squad for next season? Do we know the budget for next season, for example?
We've got squad planning that we do throughout the season to see where we are, which position we need to be changed, or which position we need to bring players in. We know exactly where we want to go, but we need to define which players are going to be with us in the journey. So as a recruitment, we have to be prepared for any type of situation. So we've got players identification. We are watching players on a daily basis, and when it's the right time to make the decision, we will make it.
Just to clarify, I think the point was made before about the money that came in previously over the last 18 months to 2 years. Is some of that available to reinvest in the squad this upcoming summer?
Yeah, I think we're going through the budget process now right across the business. Obviously, the biggest amount of budget we need is for the player wages, and also we're going to be requesting a transfer fee pot as well of money to give Rudy and recruitment team the directional steer of where they're going to be shopping, where they're going to be looking at. Rudy's pulled together a really strong recruitment team over the last few months, 2 or 3 months, because we live and die by recruitment, as we all know. So we're investing in that, but also we will be looking at what the wage bill will be with owners' approval, and then what transfer fees will be available, so that we can go into the market to shop for the players that Rudy's already compiling across a range of, every position really. What's interesting is obviously we've got 5 players on loan who have to go back to the mother clubs. We have 4 who we brought in on short-term contracts. One was obviously Adam Forshaw to fill in for an injury to Sonny Tronstad. We then, at the beginning of last season, we had Danny Barth, we had Andy Wyman, Yuri Ribeiro came in, was going to be on loan, but because of Braga having too many players on loan, we converted that into a short-term contract. So we're already in discussions with a number of players that Rudy's had discussions with Valérien about, and into the fit to his his model of very high press, high intensity, high physical data stats as well, because that's part of his methodology. And therefore, we'll be having discussions around all of those. And those who've still got a year or more left, we're also meeting them, having discussions with the agents to see what the feeling is around extending some of those contracts as well.
Just finally, what is the immediate focus for the remainder of this season? 7 games still to go. What would be your message to the supporters?
So 7 games to go, 5 points off. We've got 2 huge games. They're all huge, with 2 huge home games coming up against Middlesbrough and then Sheffield Wednesday midweek. You see what a couple of back-to-back wins does in this table that I call snakes and ladders. You win a couple, you're up the ladder. You lose a couple, you're back down the snake. And so it's interchangeable constantly. So obviously the focus is try to break this negative run at the moment, try to get points on the board, and keep going right up to the final game against Sheffield and see how close we can get to the playoffs if possible. But we need a collective effort from everybody, even in difficult times, in adversity, a collective effort from everyone involved in the club and the supporter base just to get behind the team on match days, as I said before. Let's give them the best opportunity possible to win games, home and away. The away support's been terrific when they've travelled. Voice is really supportive of the team. And then see if we can, off the pitch, have these discussions, dialogue, to try and smooth things, the issues that have arisen over the last number of months, to try and smooth those out so that we're in harmony for the start of next season.
Which is the 150th anniversary of the football club as well, a big season for this football club.